I've noticed many couples showing up on podcasts or social media. They're either being interviewed by someone or they have their own podcast. And it could be that they just have a YouTube channel and they are either in a relationship, meaning that they have a spouse, a husband, or a wife, or they're single. And they identify as heterosexual, and they talk about relationships between heterosexual people. And the setting is kind of like this photo here. They are a couple, and it's almost like they're your therapist, and they're giving out this relationship advice. And the conversation initially is focused on heterosexual relationships like dating, and then they may talk about heterosexual marriage. It just depends. Sometimes I notice the couple is together and they're either dating or they're engaged or they're married, and they're heterosexual, and they'll say, oh, well, this is how we met, and this is how we ended up making it official. This is how we got engaged, and this is how we got married. And then the conversation suddenly shifts. And there's nothing that prompts the shift in the conversation. It just changes suddenly to where this heterosexual couple, or in some cases, it's just a heterosexual male or female, and they're by themselves. Meaning sometimes they're doing maybe an interview, or they have a podcast, or they're just randomly posting on social media by themselves. And they're talking about how relationships should work nowadays. And they actually promote heterosexual marriage or heterosexual relationships. And then out of nowhere, they start talking about gay couples and gay marriage. And this is very strange because this is a heterosexual couple that's either dating or engaged or married, or sometimes it's just a single person, or it may be that they're just by themselves and they say that they're married, or they say that they're dating or they're engaged to someone of the opposite sex. And they are talking about their heterosexual relationship, but they're also talking about how people should date, or how they should work on following these steps so that you can get married. And they emphasize you should marry the opposite sex. And so they've made it very clear that they're heterosexual. They repeatedly emphasize that they're heterosexual and that you should be marrying or dating the opposite sex. They stress it. And then they shift into talking about gay couples and gay marriage. And they basically condemn gay marriage. And I find it very contradictory as well as unnecessary for heterosexual people, regardless of their relationship status, whether they're single, dating, or married. I think it's very contradictory and very unnecessary for them to include gay couples and gay marriage in their dialogue when the discussion initially was focused on heterosexual dating and heterosexual marriage. But they do this very often. And this is very much so contributing to the homophobia in society, the discrimination that is perpetrated by and through heterosexual people. Let me ask you a question, and just be honest. You don't have to necessarily state your answer in the comment section, but if you want to, you can, but be respectful. The question I have is this. If you, and you can be heterosexual, you can be homosexual, you can be bisexual. This question is not specifically geared toward anyone's specific sexual orientation or their gender or sex. It's a question. If you were looking at the I don't know, maybe you were looking at something on the TV. You were streaming, it was something streaming, and it was maybe a documentary or an interview, and you tuned into it. Or maybe you turned on your smartphone and opened up whatever social media that you like to access. There's various social medias. Pick one, your choice. Or maybe you're on YouTube and you see the topic is about dating and relationships, and you listen and you hear the host is a homosexual, and the homosexual host is accompanied by their same-sex partner, and they're discussing relationships between the same sex, and they actually inform you that they are in a relationship together and that they're married. So this is a same-sex couple, and they are basically talking about how they met and when they became engaged and when they married. And they're just giving the viewers information about how their relationship has developed. And there's a few people who actually had questions about their relationship as a gay couple. And they were answering these questions because these people wanted some advice. So they were answering the questions. And then abruptly, one of the hosts who is a gay partner abruptly stopped the Q&A and said, you know what? I am against heterosexual marriage. I do not agree with people of the opposite sex dating and getting married. It should be against the law. If you are thinking about dating the same sex, you should definitely go for it. This is the way it's supposed to be. But if you're thinking about being with the opposite sex, then you need to repent and get your life in order, because you are headed for hell and fire and brimstone. All right, so we're going to go on and tell you how to be in a gay marriage. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back. Now, you just viewed this episode of this gay couple who just made those statements. My question to you is, do you think that people, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, should be talking about another sexual orientation and how they should conduct their lives and how they should be in relationships and how they should choose who to marry and who not to marry according to their sexual orientation? In other words, if you are a heterosexual person, do you think that it is okay for you to condemn and judge another person's sexual orientation and give them instructions as well as orders about how they should live their lives and how they should be in relationships with only the opposite sex? That's the question. Because that is what I'm seeing when I tune into social media. There are so many heterosexual couples who are talking about relationships, and that's fine. If they're talking about heterosexual relationships, that's fine. That's what they're supposed to do. But they always interrupt their topic and change it and focus on gay lesbian relationships and how that they disagree with them and how they're against them, and they do not condone homosexuality and homosexual relationships, and they're against gay marriage. If gay, lesbian, and LGBTQ people created podcasts and were interviewed, because I know I have seen this with people who are just social media influencers. Some of them are celebrities. Some of these people are not popular or known, but they feel entitled to tell the public, because this information is public information. When you get on social media and when you are maybe being interviewed and you actually disclose to the world that you're heterosexual and you give relationship advice about how heterosexual relationships, dating, and marriage should occur, but you always have to throw a curveball and denounce homosexual relationships. Gay people do not focus on heterosexual people the way heterosexual people focus on gay people. When we are hanging out with each other, if we have social media, if we have a YouTube channel, we are focused on our gay relationships, our lesbian relationships, our bisexual relationships. We basically focus on LGBTQ relationships regarding dating and marriage. We don't even think about heterosexual relationships. We don't interrupt the dialogue and say, by the way, I am against heterosexual couples dating and getting married. I do not support heterosexual marriage. And it goes so far to where heterosexual people will go to LGBTQ spaces and leave toxic comments under their social media pages, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, which is now X, or Facebook, or their YouTube channels. And heterosexual people will go out of their way to go to LGBTQ spaces to condemn our relationships. There's gay marriage public forums. Some of them are private. There's many supporters of gay relationships and gay marriage. And we are minding our business in our spaces. But it never fails that heterosexual people feel entitled to come over. And they like to just rain on our parade. It brings them a sick pleasure to do so. And then they go back on their Instagram or their Twitter or their Facebook or their YouTube or their podcast, and they start talking about gay couples and gay marriage and how sickening it is to them. But I see the true sickness is your hatred. And it's destroying you. as heterosexual people. You are grossly obsessed with gay, lesbian, bisexual, and LGBTQ people in our affairs, our relationships, our marriages. You are creating a disease that is spreading. And you're fine with being sick because you continue to behave in a destructive, unsolicited, atrocious, diabolical direction. You're going the wrong way. You're out of control. You have no direction. How you can continue to oppress lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ people is really a personal issue. It's a deep-seated the issue goes beyond what you say is your religious beliefs. This is a moral issue that many heterosexual people have. And they're not willing to resolve it. They cover it up by saying, oh, it's because of my belief, my faith. They will use God to condone their mistreatment of people who are different from them. And that's the work of Satan. When straight people judge gay marriage and gay relationships, they're really judging themselves. Because the time that you spend on judging someone, talking about someone harshly, pointing at someone, looking down on them, it makes your spirit and your character vile and wicked. When you judge people, it speaks volume about where your heart is. And your heart is not pure. Your heart is perverse. And you're contributing to the darkness in the world. Every time you decide to do a YouTube video denouncing gay marriage, announcing how you're heterosexual and that being gay is going against your religious beliefs and faith, and you're demanding and commanding everybody that they better change their lives if they're homosexual, And if not, then they're doomed for hell, while heterosexual people all get to go to heaven just because they're heterosexual. Think about how you are negatively influencing so many lives. And really, at the end of the day, you're not a happy person. And you can sit there with your opposite sex partner and say, we are heterosexual, we are dating, we are engaged, we're married. Your marriage is not a happy marriage. You can pretend that it is a happy marriage, but it's not. Because people who are genuinely happy, they don't have time to look at other people's relationships and judge them. They don't. But heterosexual people, they have all the time in the world to talk about and condemn and judge lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ relationships in marriage. They don't have time for their heterosexual relationships because their focus is on gay, lesbian, LGBTQ relationships. And that lets me know that your house is not in order. So how dare you judge and give commandments to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and LGBTQ people about how to have a relationship? You can't. And you look foolish. And you're not going to prosper. You think that you're on social media, you're getting attention. Maybe you think you're going to earn a living by condemning people just because they're not heterosexual. You will never prosper when you focus on tearing someone down. When straight people judge gay marriage and gay relationships, they better watch out because their heterosexual marriages will also be judged. Thank you for listening. Have a rainbow day.